Sports anime, being one of my least favorite genres, have their ups and downs. But even so, despite all the flaws that plague sports anime, I still find them to be some of the most enjoyable watches I've ever seen. Kuroko No Basket is no exception. Kuroko, being one of the most well-known sports shows out there, has a vast amount of flaws, most of which stem from the fact that this is a sports show. So what are these flaws exactly? What merits does Kuroko have for being one of the most popular sports anime out there? Well, stick around and find out in my review of Kuroko No Basket. Starting off with the story, Kuroko No Basket, otherwise known as the basketball which Kuroko plays, centers around Kuroko Tetsuya, a high school basketball player with no real athletic skill, but has a strange lack of presence. He uses this to his advantage on the basketball court with his skill of misdirection to make up for his lack of athletic ability. In middle school, Kuroko was part of a team called the Generation of Miracles, a team of 5, 6 including the Phantom 6 maid Kuroko, whose skills in basketball are unmatched. Of course, in all shows where the protagonists have colored hair, the Generation of Miracles basically have superpowers. When their middle school years are over, they all move on to different high school teams, and this is where the generic plot of all sports anime come into play. Kuroko and his high school teammate Kagami set out to win the championship for basketball by defeating the Generation of Miracle players. Remember when I said before that all sports anime are plagued by flaws that occur solely based on the fact that this is a sports show? Well, the plot for this show is one of them. The plot is so unoriginal and uninspired. The idea that all they want to do is win for their school and teammates and defeat the Generation of Miracles has been done 1,000 times before, and Kuroko really does nothing to separate itself in that regard. There are a few sports shows that are able to pull it off by giving characters a different goal, like Baby Steps, but Kuroko is not one of them. From the moment it was conceived, Kuroko was basically doomed to wallow in the hole sports anime have dug for themselves with a set plot that is extremely difficult to stray away from. From the very beginning, there was no way for Kuroko to change the game. Speaking of games, the basketball games in Kuroko reveal yet another layer of flaws in the onion that is sports anime. The games in Kuroko are extremely predictable and the outcome can be foreseen when given the smallest amount of thought. The best example is this, and this does include spoilers for Season 2, so if you've not seen Season 2, please click the annotation on the screen to skip the spoiler. If you have seen it or just don't care, please keep watching. In Season 2, Sarian High School is to play 3 games. Win 2 games, move on. One is against a basically no-name school, one against Midora, one of the Generation of Miracles, and one against a player of obvious importance, but if we have yet to see in the show. So Sarian wins their first game with ease, of course. Next they are to play Midorima. It is easy to infer from there that they're either going to lose or tie this game. With one win under their belt, they've already played Midorima once in the show, considering this is Season 2. So if they win this game, the third game will not be of any importance whatsoever, considering that we're moving on with the 2 wins they need. If this happens, the game with the aforementioned unknown player of obvious importance will mean absolutely nothing, considering all suspense will be lost because they are already moving on to the next round. So by that, I basically inferred the events of the upcoming episodes with a very minimum amount of thinking, and this is a common occurrence throughout Kuroko and sports anime in general. This particularly bothers me, seeing as how you guys know how much I hate it when the outcome of a show is basically predetermined. The last sports anime trope is the overuse of last-second shots, blocks, and other things to build suspense. If I had $1 for every game-winning shot, clutch, block, or game decided by 1 point in this show, I sure as heck would not be making this video. It's okay at first, but Kuroko uses these things to build suspense far too many times and begins to take away from the effect after the first 10 times the show does this. One thing I can say for the games, however, is they are nothing if not suspenseful and at the very least somewhat enjoyable. Trust me, I would not have watched 25 episodes of second season in one sitting if I wasn't having fun watching, but that's basically all the games have going for them. Logic is thrown out the window for superpowers, the games are incredibly predictable, and last-second 1-point finishes become tired and overused after the first couple uses. So in the end, Kuroko is a shining example of why sports anime are one of my least favorite genres. The characters in Kuroko, unlike Midorima's full-court shots, are hit and miss. Some of the Generation of Miracles are well done with a good amount of development and progression, others are so bad if you were to look through almost every line the character speaks, you can't find one that doesn't mention snacks. Kuroko and Kagami are somewhat developed, although their motives are uninspired, again because of the nature of sports shows, and as usual, the teammates of Sarian and their respective Generation of Miracles, given a few exceptions, are basically cardboard cutouts only used because you have to have 5 players to play basketball, especially the players on the bench. So to save time, I want to go over the Generation of Miracles because let's face it, they're the only ones that matter. Kuroko Tetsuya was the Phantom 6 player of the Generation of Miracles at Teiko High School. He specializes in misdirection and passes, and now he plays as a regular with Sarian with the goal of bringing the team and Kagami to the top of Japan. Now Kuroko is an interesting case. At first I thought the idea of Kuroko not being the star of the team and only really playing support, what with his lack of basketball skills, was kinda lame. But as the show went on, I actually thought the change of pace that a shonen protagonist was not completely overpowered was much welcome. Of course, the show decided to actually stray away from this after a certain point. After he was shut down because everyone caught on to his playstyle, he changes to the overpowered, albeit in his own way, shonen protagonist I expected him to be from the beginning. As for his motivation, it's exactly what you would expect. I have to win the basketball championship for my teammates. Really uninspired, but this is through no fault of Kuroko or the show itself, it's the genre. But I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me say that by now. His development is done fairly well, and it makes a good amount of progression throughout the show, and his playstyle does adapt as other players learn his tricks, keeping him from being a one-trick pony. Speaking of one-trick ponies, the next character is Kagami. Kagami Taiga is the hot-headed, overpowered shonen protagonist we're all expecting. Kagami is the ace and power forward of Seirin. He is as overpowered as you would expect, and his goal? To beat the generation of miracles and become the best in Japan. Now we'll give him this, his motivation is a tad bit better in my eyes than Kuroko's, not much but enough, and he also develops fairly well as the show progresses. He's given a fair amount of backstory and he's a fairly well-rounded character, but I felt his only purpose in the show was to dig Seirin out of the holes they dig themselves with an absurd amount of Deus Ex Machinas. Oh, we're down by 20 points with 3 seconds left? In comes the zone, let's go! Down by 1 point with .001 seconds left on the clock, just enough time for a monster slam dunk. Obviously it's not to that extent, but that's what it feels like. The first of the actual generation of miracles, and the best in my opinion, is Aomine. Aomine Daiki was the ace player of the renowned generation of miracles back in their days in middle school, and was the former partner / light of Kuroko. He currently plays as the ace and power forward of Toho Academy, and his skills / superpowers include skill and agility, unusual speed, formless shots, and freestyle basketball. He and Kagami are sworn rivals after their clashes in the Inter High preliminaries and the Winter Cup. Aomine, with his incredible skill, is unmatched and spends the majority of the show with the mantra, "The only pawn that can beat me is me." Aomine, in terms of development, is the best of the generation of miracles. The fact that he cannot be beaten introduces some great moments in his backstory, and his transformation as a character in the show progresses. The next character is Kisei. Kisei Ryota was the generation of miracles small forward who now plays at Kaijo High. He is known for his copying abilities, as he can copy any technique he sees, often with more power than the original. The highlight of Kisei's development really doesn't take place until second season, when he learns to rely on his teammates rather than believe he can do everything by himself because he's a generation of miracles. This makes way for one of the best games in the entire series, where for one you don't know who to root for, and best of all, who comes out on top. The next generation of miracles member, my personal favorite, and for those of you who don't know or haven't caught on, this goes downhill from here, is Midorima. Midorima Shintaro was the vice captain and shooting guard of the generation of miracles. He now plays for one of the 3 kings of Tokyo, Shutoku High. His abilities include, and is limited to, shooting from anywhere on the court without missing. In terms of development, we really are given no backstory to Midorima. No real character progression is made other than that he gradually becomes nicer. The only reason I like him so much is because when I play basketball, I prefer to be more of a shooter, and how cool it would be to make shots from anywhere on the court. Next we have Akashi. Akashi Seijiro is the captain of the generation of miracles. He's the only person in the generation of miracles knuckle under. He is now the point guard and captain of Rakuzan High. His superpowers, and believe me, I don't use that term lightly because his strengths are way too far-fetched to be considered anything other than superpowers, include his Emperor's Eye, which lets him see your moves before you do and counter you, and yes, that's just as OP as it sounds, triple threat penetration, ankle break dribbles, and situational analysis speed. In terms of development, not much is known about his backstory other than how he became to be the captain of the generation of miracles. He claims to have never lost anything, as if you could be any more overpowered for no reason whatsoever. The last and certainly least members of the generation of miracles is Murasaki Bara. Remember when I said there was a character who, if you were to look at through almost every line they speak, you can't find one that doesn't mention snacks? Well, this is him. Murasaki Bara Atsushi was the generation of miracle center who now plays for Yosen High. His strengths include monstrous strength, powerful offense and defense, and zone play. The only thing that he does have going for him is that he seems to be the most realistic in terms of power, but I suppose you don't really look for realism if you're watching the show. At least his powers actually seem plausible given his size. He's the least developed and honestly has no major backstory to speak of. His only purpose is to be a literal wall that the characters have to overcome on their way to the top. As for the rest of the characters of Kuroko, 90% are forgettable, only being used to take up space. The only real exceptions being Kiyoshi Teppei, the former Seirin ace, and Hyuga Junpei, the captain of Seirin. So for the characters of Kuroko, they are decent for the majority of the main characters in the generation, and a few standouts amongst the teammates, but the rest are severely underdeveloped due to the large size of the cast and only take up space. This, of course, is no excuse for Murasaki Bara. The art and animation in Kuroko for the basketball games are really well done. They serve to play upon the intensity of the games. Although there are a fair amount of still frames, the games flow very well and have a sense of smoothness that make the games feel fluid. However, the biggest flaw in the animation is the inconsistency of the fluidity of the animation. The movement of players shooting and passing the ball feels too rigid or unnatural at times. As good as the art and animation style in the games are, the same can't be said for the art and animation outside of these moments. The art style feels bland, especially considering the games make everything else look less good in comparison. Don't even get me started on these stupid shading lines under the neck. It's not bad necessarily, just a really minor nitpick that really got on my nerves. Character designs are great with the Generation of Miracles, all looking like typical shonen protagonists with colored hair and superpowers, and they all really fit their respective personalities extremely well. The sound for Kuroko, much like a lot of shows I watched, never really had any moments that made me say, wow, this soundtrack is amazing. That's not to say it's bad, I just don't see it as memorable. It did its job in making the games as intense as they need to be. For the most part, the music consists of guitar-heavy tracks that come in whenever something notable happens or a suspenseful table-turning moment occurs. The opening, unlike the majority of the soundtrack, are actually memorable and carry the same feel of adrenaline-pumping intensity the show has. It consists mostly of rock songs that really make you feel hyped for the episode to come. In the end, Kuroko No Basket is a sports anime that suffers from the same flaws that occur in a majority of sports anime. But despite this, I found the show to be incredibly enjoyable. The games themselves felt intense and engaging, even though most of the time you could predict who would win. The characters are hit and miss, with some characters being well developed and fleshed out, others being completely useless and or whose only purpose is to talk about snacks. The art and animation are great in the games, although inconsistent at points, becoming framey and with an overuse of still frames, but the art in the basketball games makes the art in the other points feel uninspired and it fails in comparison. The sound is very memorable, but it serves its purpose, and the openings are great and there isn't a bad one in the bunch. If you're looking for a sports anime that can entertain, I truly believe Kuroko is a show for you. This show is nothing if not engaging and entertaining, and in the end it is truly enjoyable watch, as are most sports anime. As for all the recommendations, the first I have for you is Haikyuu. This show is made by the same studio that made Kuroko, Production IG, and my favorite sports anime out there. I also recommend Baby Steps. Baby Steps is a great sports anime that does not rely on superpowers to be good. It's one of the less predictable sports anime out there as well, and makes it much more enjoyable. So if you guys enjoyed my review of Kuroko No Basket, if you did, please leave a like and tell me what you guys thought of the show in the comment section down below. And again, hope you guys enjoy. Leave a like if you did, and I'll see you guys next time.